Yeah,
on
I
their
must admit,
dollars.
watching your video about how you did it kind of blew my head off. So I mean,
Was
not
that
way, but,
the Jude Law one, or?
yeah, the
So,
Judy one. Yeah.
okay, cool.
Just so it was so helpful. You know, when you have no idea and you're sitting at home and you're thinking, how on earth am I gonna make someone pay attention to my movie? To then
Right.
suddenly come up with this idea, and then that you were so generous in sharing the steps and did it in a funny way too. I'm literally like nails, like on the edge of my seat, going, "Oh my goodness, now what happens?" And then it's like,
Scott, didn't you say we shared their video on our site like well before we even booked them to do this?
Yeah. Well, one of them we did. So for everybody, I guess we're kind of getting started in a little ways, because I was going to talk about this in my intro. Our pro tips and tricks page, which is something that I oversee, we have so much original content that, we get from film festivals and sit down interviews and stuff like this will be on it as well. But we also have some really great third-party creators out there that share their information and share their videos with us. And one of them is Film Riot. And Colin was featured on a Film Riot kind of behind the scenes telling their story. And I think because I'd watched that video months ago, the how to get a world famous actor in your short film was suggested to me from YouTube. So I saw that, I don't know, 5 months ago or more. And so like, yeah.
The algorithm is working.
I know who this is. Yeah. So we actually just posted your video as well on our pro tips and tricks page, because it is so fun. And it makes something that seems impossible. Obviously we see all the hard work you put into getting to that point, but there's a game plan, and it seems attainable now. Something that seems like beyond what you should be able to do as an independent filmmaker for a short film. So that's awesome.
I so appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the official start of our virtual Third Thursdays for October with Mike, Sundy, and Colin Levy. Thank you both for being here. We are super excited. We've had a taste of what you've done by watching some videos and the film itself. So very excited. We are about to launch our pitch challenge again, our virtual pitch challenge, which we've done a couple of times. It's been a fantastic event. Basically, you send us in a 90-second pitch, and 3 winners get to then pitch in front of a panel of industry execs. It's a lot of fun. We've had crazy amount of success from this. People are getting represented, read by MGM. I mean, like, good stuff is happening from this contest. And this time around, we're sponsored by Final Draft. So all the winners also get a software package from Final Draft, which is pretty neato fun. So thank you to Final Draft. Couple events coming up. October's kind of jam-packed. Next Wednesday, which is the 21st, is Max's class dialogue on dialogue. Talking about dialogue. And is that clear? Clear dialogue. What makes it stick? What makes it stand out? The nuances, all that good stuff. You should definitely check it out. He's the director of education for the ISA, so he kind of knows what he's talking about. The writer's sprint we do with Writer's Block every couple of weeks is next Thursday on the 22nd. It's on the Writer's Block Discord channel. The next day, Friday the 23rd, we have a conversation with horror legend Charles Band. It's pretty awesome. If you're into horror, this is super awesome. If you're not into horror, it's still really cool because this man has really recreated his career a couple of times. And so it's just really good to be inspired and learn from, and what everyone can really take something away from this, I think. And then the following Wednesday, the 28th, Pilar Alessandra, who is one of the consulting greats of the industry, is giving a class on breaking the rules. And then it's not posted yet, but this just in, November 6th, we're doing a deconstructing of film financing with Bondit, film financing company. So check out our events page and sign up for all those really awesome events. That is all I'm going to say. Thank you again for being here, everybody, and have fun tonight.
I'm your host for tonight. I am moderating this event because I was the person who stalked Colin on Instagram to harass him to do this for us. So I basically approached him about doing the seminar with us about passion projects. Any project that's been burning on your brain, anything that you've thought about for so long and you just don't know how to get started or where any of this fodder comes from to build out your project. So anyways, we're lucky enough to snag Colin and Mike here, who are the creators of the upcoming NBC Peacock project Skywatch. So if you guys kept up with the trades, Skywatch is based on Colin's short film of the same name that after a round of competitive bidding was nabbed by Seth MacFarlane and Peacock. And Colin's short film passion project was partially funded by Kickstarter. So it's truly a labor of love, I would imagine, for him and an effort of many. So if you have any questions that you want me to monitor and ask at the end of it, just shoot it to the panelists section in Q&A. But for now, I'm gonna let you guys kick it off and talk to us about, I know you have something prepared. So thank you so much for being here. And Colin and Mike, everyone.
Thank you so much. Awesome. Yeah, we're very excited to be here. I'm Colin.
I'm Mike.
Really excited to talk about Skywatch. Let me just share my screen. We threw together it's not short, 45-ish minute presentation. Both of us will be talking about this particular passion project, but also the passion projects that led to this passion project. So mostly going to be a writing-oriented talk. I mean, I've done a little bit of talking about the short film, but it's such a cool opportunity to be able to talk more specifically about the writing process that happened along with the production of the short, which, it's the first time chatting together as a writing team, Mike and I. So thank you, Amy, for reaching out about this. So Skywatch, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's a 10-minute sort of sci-fi short film, proof of concept short that you can find on YouTube. And we released it last year, and to sort of whet your appetite, if you haven't seen it, just brought along the teaser trailer that I released about 2 weeks before the YouTube release. So let me just start with that.
Dude, this is so bad.
Enjoy your order.
I think he's got a lady friend over. Oh. What is it? Oh, you'll see. Mike, what's it doing?
I'm getting an error in the drone.
Oh my god.
Attention. You are in breach of the Nextport Corporation's Terms of Service Agreement. Please remain where you are, and someone will arrive to assist you.
So this is a project that really has been 7 years in the making. We released it December 4th last year, and the offer that Amy just brought up came in I think by the end of that week. Our first offer came in the very next day. It was ridiculous, pretty much a dream come true situation. So yeah, as Amy mentioned, we're now developing it as a TV series with Peacock and UCP and Fuzzy Door. So we want to talk about the long and windy path that kind of got us to that moment. Talk about our origin stories separately, and then how we met up, how we started working together, and many of the failures along the way, the pitching process a little bit, lessons learned, that kind of thing. So just to rewind a little bit, each of us, I think it's kind of a relevant story to tell. The path that brought us together is useful for context. Each of us kind of have been pursuing our independent path for at least 15 years before we met. Me as a director, filmmaker, and Mike as a writer. And throughout those 15 years, we were basically consumed by our passion projects. So for me, that started when I was 13. I was making movies with my brothers, bossing them around in my backyard. And that's when I discovered a love I had for filmmaking. And I drew this, I think, in high school, how I see my life right now. I've been an aspiring director for a long time, and it's really hard to know how to turn basically your passion into a career, right? I mean, I've been working to figure that out for a long time. And the only thing I knew that I had control over myself was to make movies. So I've done a lot of bad, films. I'll call them videos, crappy little backyard projects. Passion projects for no money. But each project I learned stuff from. Each one kind of got bigger and better than the last. And all of this stuff was sort of balanced, with other things going on in life, school or work or whatever it was. And it wasn't until this project, Sintel, which was a full 10 years ago, that I had my first taste of success. It was the first thing that anyone saw. And I want to talk about this project real quick because it taught me some lessons that informed Skywatch. So Sintel, we released it on YouTube again in 2010. It crossed 1 million views in the first week. I got on the front page or the cover of this magazine. Lots of people were seeing it, and I thought my career was about to explode because my short film went viral. I had my first interactions with Hollywood. I got a manager. I signed with an agent, with WME. I was like, I'm the next big thing, and that's not how the real world works. And I learned a valuable lesson with it because, the question came up, what is the feature version of Sintel? Well, I was making a short film. I was only focused on this 15 minutes. And you're really only as valuable as the IP you bring to the table. And my representatives needed material to sell, and I didn't have a pitch at the ready. And basically, I missed my opportunity. So what to do? I kind of went back to the only thing I knew how to do, which is make short films. And I continued to try to make them bigger and better than what I'd done in the past. Went back to film school. And those projects, including Sintel, led to an opportunity to work at Pixar. And that was basically a dream job. I got to work on these projects, including Inside Out, which I'm very proud of having a hand in. I was a layout artist, a camera and staging artist, so I was focused on cinematography. Basically, there's a lot of people at Pixar, so I was a small part of a very big machine. It was a very creative role, but I had been seeing, on the internet, lots of short film directors who I thought had promising careers as directors go off and join a studio and become a specialist or become an artist, and then they might never make anything original again, which is, I was just wondering, like, maybe that's my fate. Maybe that's what's going to happen. And I mean, I had a fantastic job. I mean, I was so lucky to get to that point. But it was also the first time, 13, when I didn't have my own project. I didn't have my own film. I'd been making movies for a long time, and I still basically felt the same. I've always wanted to direct, and still didn't know how quite to get there. And that's when I kind of came across this proof of concept model of breaking in, which was definitely at that point like a goal, a career goal. Like, how do I move away from the passion project thing? And these sort of proof of concepts, I just saw all these success stories out there. They're all like teasers for something bigger. Portal, No Escape made a big impression on me. Ruin and Panic Attack. And whether or not these projects actually got made, they led to feature deals. And that's a first step. So kind of started thinking about this big picture strategy of trying to recreate that moment of opportunity that I experienced with Sintel, but with much better and more strategic preparation. With the short film, I wanted the best of both worlds. I wanted to tell, a lot of these guys are like really spectacle oriented and wasn't doing too much in terms of storytelling. And I really wanted to also tell a story. And so that was sort of my goal going into Skywatch, which I wanted to basically develop into the thing that represents what I want to make, which for me is like Amblin-esque big budget, sci-fi. I love conspiracy thrillers. I basically tried to write the thing that in the perfect world I would get to make. But I actually didn't, this is where it started. Sort of started writing and I've done a lot of shorts. So like, I kind of knew how to get a short made. I took a leave of absence from work and we went and shot something, and we started chipping away at it. And, that's a whole other talk. But pretty soon I was able to, start thinking ahead to, when this thing is done, how am I going to execute this game plan? I knew I could make the short because I've done so many of them, but what I didn't know is if I could write a feature. I've never really considered myself a writer, and the feature screenplay, was just very intimidating. So I knew that I needed some help. I needed to find a writer, and that led to a very fateful day on the soccer field, which we'll get back to later. So here's Mike.
Yeah, so meanwhile, while Colin was making short films, I was trying to be a screenwriter for about the same amount of time he was making shorts. I was for 15 years trying to be a screenwriter, so I'll just back up a little bit and tell you how I got there. I was a new father working in IT at a video game company. I wasn't passionate about IT, but it paid fairly well, and I had a growing family to support. But I was still kind of burnt out on it. I think I'd been doing it for about 10 years, and I was like, is this what my life is going to be? Just in a desk, looking at sysadmin logs. And so I decided to take an aptitude test, Johnson O'Connor Research Foundation. And it was different than Colin. Colin knew what his passion was right at age 13. I didn't know. I was 28 and I was still like, there's something missing, but I don't know what it is or what I should do. So I took this aptitude test over a weekend, and one of the things it said to consider as a career was playwright. And I was like, I had never thought about that. I mean, it made some sense because I had grown up loving like making up stories for my action figures, and I was a voracious reader, mostly sci-fi and fantasy. So I was like, oh yeah, I've always loved story. I love movies. But it still wasn't necessarily something I could see myself doing. And I realized, I have a family. I can't be a playwright. I got to make some money. So how about screenwriting?
Mike, where did you even get an aptitude test? I haven't seen those since the 7th grade. Where did you order them?
It's this foundation you sign up for and go for a weekend of testing, and it's really interesting. I've had my kids do it, or my oldest. Anyway, so I did that, and it kind of guided me down this path. And then
sorry.
Yeah, no worries. And then basically I was like, where do I start? How do I write a script? I kind of got a couple books and I stumbled through my first script, just longhand in a notebook. And then I retyped it, I think, in Final Draft or something. But I was like, oh, I did enjoy this process. Let me try this again. So let me move on to, more formal education. So I went to the UCLA online professional program in screenwriting, which is a great program. Basically, you take a 10-week course and you write 10 pages a week and workshop them with your classmates, which is just invaluable as far as like getting perspective on your story and things. And that's my favorite teacher, Tim Alba. I took many classes with him. Did UCLA. I filled up some boxes with scripts, kind of honed my craft, got down, what I could do. And that I came to a moment where I was like, oh, I really enjoy this. I want to move towards that as a career, but I'm not ready to sort of make the leap or jump yet. But instead, I found a new IT job at Pixar, which was still an IT job, but filmmaking is like in the water there, which is great. So, you're surrounded by people who just totally love story and respect it. There's me starting out with Luxo. And then, after that, basically, they have all kinds of educational programs, which is really useful. So this is the main theater at Pixar. We got to see a lot of great films by Sundance directors and A-list directors. So it's really hard to see, but that guy in the white shirt is Francis Ford Coppola, and like Quentin Tarantino came through there. It was an amazing filmmaking education. And I kind of took the equivalent of an undergrad college degree in screenwriting there, because they had this Pixar University program after work where you could take classes. So I just soaked up everything related to writing, story structure, you know, TV writing, whatever it was, I was there. So in the meantime, a lot of us had taken these classes and we still had scripts to finish. Maybe we only got through a first act or halfway through, and we're like, well, we don't want to just stop just because the teacher's contract is up. So let's keep it going. Let's just workshop ourselves. So I co-founded this writing group at Pixar, this after hours group, and we just all would read each other's stuff and do table reads, cast each other in parts, and hear our dialogue aloud, and just kind of really hone our craft, and then celebrate each other and you know, be there when somebody didn't get something, or celebrate when they won something. So the next step would be contests, which is, we were like, how do we actually break in? We love doing this as a hobby, but how do we break in? There's not a clear path, you know? So contests seemed like the logical thing. We entered several contests, and then I didn't get anything for a couple of years, but then I started placing in the quarterfinals and the semifinals. And then finally, I got finalist at the Austin Film Festival, which is my favorite film festival and screenwriting contest. And it's just a great place. It's a bunch of writers. You get to learn from all the industry pros about the craft, and you can build a community and find new readers there. You know, I distinctly remember seeking out a reader who had placed as a finalist before, and switching scripts with him to like analyze it and see like what set his script apart from mine, why, you know, where was the gap. So just stuff like that. You could really learn from your peers and from the pros. So yeah, I loved Austin. And yeah, this is my script that placed as a finalist, which was great. It was top 5 out of like 6,000 scripts. So I was like, yes, finally, I am going to make it. I'm going to get a manager and break in, and everything's going to happen. But no, not a single manager reached out. I tried some cold queries kind of half-heartedly, and none of those worked. So I was really kind of despairing at that point. It was like, oh man, have I wasted, this is my office chair at the time, I'd worn out from writing and boxes I'd filled with writing. But you know, was it all for nothing? Was I done as a writer? So I kind of retreated and licked my wounds and switched to something else, which is children's book writing. So it's my daughter Nora, but that was one of the classes I took at Pixar, was children's book writing, and I really enjoyed it because really nice people in children's book writing, very short to rewrite. It takes like an hour to rewrite instead of a few months. And more importantly, I could self-publish children's books, and I could get my writing out there and you know, really show it to the world and see if people responded to it. Because as a screenwriter, you can't really tell if people like your stuff. You know, some people read it, but it's not the finished product, you know? So I realized this gave me some power and let me kind of build something that I could get out there. So, but at that point I was like, should I give up on screenwriting? You know, nobody wants to read a script really. But I still loved the form of screenwriting. But I realized the thing that was good about the children's books is I could communicate a vision and put it in the reader's hands or the viewer's hands. And so I realized, a short film would do this for a screenplay. So what I really need is a director.
Brings us back to this fateful day.
Yeah. So I met Colin here at the Pixar soccer field. And everybody at Pixar has like a hobby on the side. Some people are in a band. Some people, you know, photograph beautiful cookbooks, whatever it is. But a lot of people are into film and TV, and Colin and I got to chatting and discovered we had a shared love of filmmaking. So I kind of looked him up, and I saw his student short film, En route, or en route, sorry. And it was amazing. It blew me away. I was like, how did a student do this? This is a very sophisticated filmmaker. And then I got to see an early, we kind of traded scripts. I gave him some of my scripts. He gave me some of his short film scripts, and we give each other feedback, you know, really informal. He pitched some animated shorts and I give him feedback, but I could sense a kindred spirit there, and that, you know, we had similar sensibilities. And when he showed me the rough cut of Skywatch, this is when it was in reels, which are like storyboards, I was just completely blown away because it was so well executed, such a high quality level. You know, a lot of people make short films and some are good, but most aren't great. And this was like clearly at a higher tier. So I was like, this is amazing. I would love to work on this with Colin. So that's kind of how we met.
Yeah. So Mike is a very unassuming and very humble guy. He's unassuming on the soccer field. He's a lethal striker, one of the most valuable people on all the Pixar soccer. And I'm a lumbering, very uncoordinated. But I'm very glad that I mean, it was one of my favorite aspects of that job was being able to get on the soccer field. And, you know, we basically hit it off. And when I guess the reason Mike is also, I would say the same thing applies to his writing. You know, when I read what the work that he shared, I was like, this could be a great collaboration. I have a lot to learn in the screenwriting department. So we basically just started grabbing lunch once a week for a while. And talking story, talking Skywatch, talking movies we loved, and started collaborating. It was a very casual, you know, time for like 6 months of just brainstorming, talking about theme. But then we started to formalize the relationship, and we're like, okay, we're gonna try this. We're gonna 50-50, you know, co-write, even though we didn't know each other that well. And you know, it took some time to sort of figure out how this relationship was going to work. You know, to find trust in one another, and roles within I mean, the screenwriting process. One thing that Mike is a fan of is outlining, and I learned to love it. And we note carded physically with Sharpie. Basically after hours at Pixar, we would just check out a conference room. And we spent 10 months just outlining. So this is, you know, August 2015, and a whole year later, at the biggest conference room at the studio. We were very proud of ourselves before we jumped to pages. So wanted to, I shot a video at the time to capture a moment of significance. So I just want to play that real quick. Okay, it's 3 hours later. What did we accomplish?
We reworked the end of the first act.
Which was not our plan.
Yes.
But it was
But
important.
It's better now.
Yeah, what did we change?
We made it simpler.
Yeah, we clarified some goals.
Yes.
And
then we worked on the beginning of the second act.
The B plot.
Yes.
Introducing our antagonist. And what happens at the end of this week?
I leave Pixar.
Da, da, da. And what happened on Amazon today?
I hit #1, new release in my children's book category for Valentine's Day.
Unbelievable. This is a big time.
Yes.
It's a big week for you.
Right. So yeah, it was a big time for me, and a big moment to decide whether I was going to pursue my passion or not. So basically I wanted more time to work on Skywatch and the children's books, like writing for nights and weekends for 10 years or 15 years. I can't remember. It just wasn't cutting it anymore. You know, I just needed more time, and I was like, I'm getting older. I just want to make a real shot at this. Right. So otherwise I'd be stuck in an IT job the rest of my life, which isn't the worst fate, but it's not what I wanted to do. So it's a little bit scary. You know, I had health insurance, a little family to support. College was looming for my oldest daughter, but it was my dream. So I took the plunge.
And it's just weird how we would not plan this together, but we were on very parallel tracks, because I was discovering that Skywatch, the short film, was just never going to get done. I had taken a second leave of absence by this point to finish the visual effects, but we had over 200 effects shots, which is 3 times as many as Jurassic Park. You know, there was no way I was going to be able to continue balancing my day job. So I did the same thing. I followed Mike's footsteps, and I went full time on this passion project, and decided it was also time to move to LA. So we ended up spending 4 years on essentially the first draft, which is kind of crazy. We spent a whole year just talking about it. Then we spent 10 months just outlining. Then we spent probably at least a year and a half writing the script. The first draft came back north of 200 pages, which is, all this is way too long. And we knew we couldn't even...
Colin, to clarify, this is the feature.
This is the feature script. Okay. Sorry, yes. Feature script for Skywatch, which was at the time the dream. And we knew we couldn't even share this 200-page draft with friends or anyone. It was just way too long. So, you know, to get to something readable took about 4 years. And while I was in LA, just sort of meanwhile, I kind of knocked on the doors of my old reps, because like I had signed with some people, but then I went away to Pixar. So now that I'm in LA, it's like, okay, guys, remember me? And it did seem like, to make this game plan actually work out, I was going to be relying on them. And it became kind of clear that the enthusiasm wasn't quite there, and that I might be better off finding new reps, or at least there was a time when I stepped away from that relationship, and for a time I was unrepresented and kind of kept my ear to the ground, and signed. I ultimately got a recommendation and was able to find another manager. You know, in talking to them about my game plan, it became very clear that, you know, they got it. They were pumped. They loved the previous work, but they were particularly excited about Skywatch. And as a part of that conversation, I talked about the feature screenplay, which I was very serious about, and I was working on with Mike Sundy. They were like, "Who's Mike?" And so they ended up signing the both of us.
Yeah, which was great for me, because I'd wanted a manager for so long, and I already left Pixar at this point, so this was good validation of my choice to leave. But it's just interesting. It didn't happen the way I expected. I expected to get a manager through a contest, or meeting him at a conference or something, or cold querying. But surprise, it came from Colin and from our collaboration.
I mean, in general, I feel like, there's a lesson in there. We didn't make a slide out of it, but so many, it's like pitching various carts to various other people's horses. It's like suddenly we're all, along for this journey, and none of us could have done anything without everyone else's collaboration. So one of the first roles that our manager ended up playing was giving us some feedback, because we finally got to a point where we had a readable draft of Skywatch, and it was devastating, just really terrible, especially after having spent so long. We're just talking 4 whole years just on the script. It was clear that we had some fundamental issues. And this is echoed by friends and family too. It was not just the managers. And, we had tone problems, logic problems, character problems. It was very, very unwieldy still, even though we got it to a better length. Certainly wasn't ready to shop around, which blew up our timeline, because we were actually in the home stretch on the short film. The short, we could have released it in the end of 2018. The only thing we had left for the short was this hole for the cameo that we had kind of vaguely left open in the hopes that we would get a famous actor to come in and play a role for the reveal of our villain. But we could have really, if we wanted to, could have just cast somebody in that role and got this short film out. Essentially, we postponed the plan, because we had some decisions to make. Like, okay, obviously, we have to do some thinking. Obviously, we got lost in the weeds. These are some takeaways. We should have been getting feedback immediately. Maybe we should have gotten feedback on the outline rather than waiting until pages. We also realized that as co-writers, Mike and I share some blind spots. We are both, we're similar in a lot of ways, we're different in other ways, but we're both so plot oriented. We're seduced by the world building, by the genre elements, by the plot puzzle, conundrum, it's just like figuring out how to get our characters through this intricate journey. And we lost touch on the character stuff, and it's characters everything. This led to some insecurities. Can we even do this? Should we really start over? Should we maybe just make a pitch deck? Forget about the whole script idea, or maybe we write something different, because we started brainstorming about a low budget thriller that would be much more possible to get off the ground. It would be lean and grounded, and this is a valuable relationship, and maybe Skywatch could be a launching pad for that. But eventually we decided, okay, we're going to try this, and kind of went and threw a bunch of mud at the wall. Really, it was a depressing time. But ultimately, we realized that it's the old adage, right? What you know. Eventually, we realized that if we could make this more personal to us, we would have something to grab a hold of and something to really ground our main character's journey. We both have brothers. So we wanted to tell a brother story, and for us as well in the families, just mental illness, personal experiences of bullying. So we just kind of grounded our protagonist in our own experiences. And the silver lining to pushing our plans for a year is we had many, many months to just try and find the best cameo we could to fill that one missing puzzle piece for the short film. And we were so thrilled that we were able to get Jude Law in our short. He showed up for 7 seconds. My producer, Andre.
How did this happen? Tell us.
That's its own talk too. And I do, as you mentioned at the very beginning, made a little YouTube video about the process of getting Jude's attention, because we had no connections to anybody. What was nice is the short really was pretty much complete, and it was pretty much strong. And we left nothing to the imagination. So it was really just a matter of trying to get this Vimeo link to someone like Jude. And honestly, just to have him watch it would have been an honor, but he really was down to help us out. And Andre, my producer, and I flew to London just to shoot this, which was quite an adventure and a morale boost on the project. And basically, by the time we came back, we did the visual effects for that. We really, put the rest of the film together with a bow. We had a feature script. It was not a whole year later, but it was close to that. And we got a much more grounded character-based feature that was a little less broad, and tonally more specific. Unfortunately, our managers were a lot more enthusiastic about this one. And finally, the materials were pretty much complete. The short and the screenplay, that's like, God, all right, now we have something to sell. So it's just about the pitch. So just talk about pitching for a little bit, because I always knew this was coming. I'm going to have to pitch a project in real life, in person with people, which is not my favorite thing. I hate public speaking. I'm getting better at it, but I definitely struggled with the whole pitching thing. And because Mike is in the Bay Area and I was in LA, it was going to kind of end up resting on my shoulders to be pitching the story. Andre was also in the room with me, so we kind of tag teamed in that way. But the plan was to kind of go this Hollywood approach. Okay, I have a manager. We are going to try and get this short at a good film festival. In our case, it ended up being Austin. And then we're going to send out private links to the short. We're going to pitch our hearts out, and we're going to follow up with the script, and people are going to love it. They're going to buy it, and it's going to be great. That was the plan. So then we did start taking it out. We did this sort of water bottle tour for Skywatch, and our manager was able to set up a bunch of meetings, and we pitched over a dozen times to some dream places, to producers and production companies and development execs, and it was like such a nerve-wracking experience. I definitely crashed and burned more than a couple times, but overall, it was, I would say there was tempered enthusiasm, in these meetings. Like, everyone loved the short. There's no question about that. Then we talked about the feature vision, very expensive, very, first-time director, they could kind of see it. And really everyone was like, okay, well, send us the script, because it was just like, it all depends on the quality of that script. And this may have been a strategic error, but we decided, instead of following up with every individual production company immediately with the script, we kind of decided to send it out in one fell swoop after having gone through all the meetings. So for some people, we met, and then 3 weeks passed before they received the script. And that was perhaps, an error, as I said, because we also had Thanksgiving that kind of interfered. But on the other side of Thanksgiving, we were just starting to get passes, or just crickets. We weren't even hearing back from places. Not for us, and you never really know why. Some of the places we felt the most optimistic about were the ones passing first, and we were like freaking out. But the upshot was, we did not create the type of moment that I was hoping for, after all this. And this goes beyond the 5 years on the screenplay. It was 6 at least for me on the short, but it was clear that the Hollywood approach didn't work. So there's only one more trigger to pull, which is the online release, which is a bit of a Hail Mary feeling, when these passes started coming back. And for me, it was kind of back to the Sintel moment. I mean, that was the original goal, is to recreate that moment. But everything good in my career has come from a splashy online release, and it wasn't just Intel, but other shorts too. It was designed as an online short, and now we had Jude Law as a cameo, which I thought would help our chances. But you really have no idea when you hit publish on YouTube how something is going to go. So I knew, though, that I had a little bit more control over crafting that moment. So basically, for 2 solid weeks, I just crammed in preparation for the online release, tried to line up press, tried to, tease at it as much as possible on social media, et cetera, et cetera. Basically a big gamble, but it ultimately changed the tide and broke things open. Basically, my manager started receiving a whole bunch of calls, and we got a lot of people, the link was basically going around organically instead of us trying to get individual people.
I was going to say, Colin, forgive me for interrupting, but did you,
yeah,
as a social media strategist, how did you get this many eyes on for people who are interested in releasing their short online?
I mean, we had a conversation with a publicist. I wanted to blitz, I want this, everything, my whole life depends on this moment. So it was like, I wanted to do it properly, and it actually didn't feel proper at all. It was really, I had a bit of a strategy, but I was a one-man release band. Like, I was just reaching out to my contacts, and I was, I was trying to generate a bunch of content, media, 5-second clips, the stuff that I could push out there. We did have Kickstarter audience kind of built up, who have been following it. But yeah, it was pretty disorganized and frantic. And I didn't sleep at all, for at least, I think it was 48 hours, maybe it was a little less, but prior to hitting upload on YouTube. And then I stayed up because it was like, now it's actually out. But we were fortunate enough to get some press on Slash Film lined up. We got the Vimeo staff pick was actually lined up, so we could kind of hit the ground running at least. And what was crazy is I did crash real hard that night. And when I woke up the phone was blaring, and it was like, you got to get in the car because we had a pitch over an executive's lunch break. We got a pitch right after that. I basically had no time to eat because there were so many pitches lined up. And this is a second round of pitches. And it turns out those November pitches and the crash and burning that happened was so valuable to have done, because now when it actually mattered, I knew what I was going to say. And the pressure was on in a much bigger way because we were now meeting with the decision makers instead of like development execs or, you know, assistants or whatever. It was actually the president of the company in certain cases, which was ridiculous.
All because someone at their company had shared it to him and he said, get me a meeting today.
Yeah, because there's a bit of a heat that I mean, we tried to create some heat artificially in November. I guess it was more about like accessing the Hollywood whisper network, right? In November, we were trying to slip things to people like, here's a sneak peek. But this time it was really about like everyone is seeing this at the same time. And I think, yeah, somehow it generated the right enthusiasm. And it was so nerve-wracking because the stakes could not be higher at this point. It was really, this is it. Either it's going to work or it's not. You know, being in the lobby of Netflix when you really, you know, you're about to go in, it was very scary. But at the end of the day, the promise of the feature story combined with the strength of the short and the enthusiasm in that moment proved to be enough, because as I mentioned, you know, the very next day we had our first offer, and by the end of the week we had multiple. And there was so much relief because I've been working towards this goal since I was 15. You know, it's like trying to go from the world of passion projects into making this an actual career. I mean, leaving Pixar was scary, but even figuring out how am I going to support myself, you know, it was getting to a point where if this didn't work out, like I don't know what I would do. Yes, it took a couple of days, but I think there was a weekend thrown in there where I was just pretty much a complete sobbing mess. But it was after the relief. It was after we got an offer, so I knew it was going to go somewhere. And it was so validating, of course. So we found a fantastic home, and in the process of deciding on Peacock, we had a big decision to make. We had been writing a feature screenplay for plus years, and now we had options on the table to make it a series, and we had a decision to make about streamer versus studio as well. It was crazy to be in this position all of a sudden. So we had lots of conversations. We basically trusted our gut, and it's important to us to get this thing made. I don't want to just sell it. This is my goal in life. I want to make Skywatch, you know, the next version of it. And to be honest, Mike and I both, I think after spending as long as we did writing and rewriting the feature script, we were a little burned out on the feature, you know, and we didn't want notes on the feature. And so we could actually get excited about reconceiving the story in a completely fresh context and a completely fresh structure. So that all informed our choice to go with Peacock, and we couldn't be more excited. But big picture, in the end, you know, our crazy strategy worked, you know, and having the short, pairing it with a screenplay based on the, you know, the things that I had seen out there that we modeled this strategically after. Like in the end, we finally got our own press release in the trades, which was, you know, it's quite a rite of passage. Man, so glad to be on this end of it.
Yeah, and from my perspective, it was wonderful to finally sell a script after 18 years of screenwriting. Excuse me. And I remember specifically the most emotional moment for me was realizing I was going to get into the WGA, which is, you know, all these professional writers I looked up to for so long at like Austin and things like that. And to be like, wow, I'm going to be a peer with those writers. So that was great. And then, excuse me, also just getting off the phone with the manager and realizing, it's real. Jumping up, that was from my notebook at the time. Like, yay, this is finally actually happening. And then finally, just to do it with Colin, to do it with such a wonderful friend and collaborator, it was just, what a great feeling.
Yeah, I mean, if
So
you guys
excited.
look at the chat, I mean, everyone is just blowing up with congratulations and that how much you deserve this, just based on what we've all seen and all the proof that you gave us. I can't believe you documented so much journey. You're so smart.
We had a good time in preparation for this talk, just going through so many photos we hadn't taken a look at. So
amazing.
Really
I mean,
fun.
So now you're at Peacock. I mean, what did that mean? What did the pitching process, did they have you develop season 1 through 5 before the pitch? Like, I mean, are they bringing on an experienced showrunner? Like, what's the deal?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, obviously in that moment, we had no pilot to pitch. We had no show to pitch. But I knew the context for that Peacock meeting was that they're not interested in this as a movie. So I was like, well, I'll pitch you the feature and you can let me know what you think. And fortunately, it was, after I kind of got through this like 15-minute, story rundown, the feedback was, well, that sounds like a first season to us. That sounds like a first season arc. And I was like, awesome. And I really could see, I could see that potential. And like, our first draft was over 200 pages. That was the first time we thought about, would this make a better show? And so fortunately, they really took a leap of faith with us. And the development process has been so far one of surprising amount of trust. They are allowing us, we're currently adapting that feature script to a pilot script and Bible. And that's what has been taking our focus. And we'll see how things shape up from here. I obviously, we have very limited experience in television or anything. So we will see who ends up being necessary to bring on board. It was definitely a big moment to have Fuzzy Door join, because they weren't in that initial pitch, but soon afterwards they joined. So it's been a growing year of growing momentum, I guess.
Yeah, my God. And I mean, you guys you had momentum as creators. I mean, obviously, I'm sure the Pixar title definitely helped, but for Colin, for you especially, I know some people have also been asking those previous short films that you made that just help bolster your portfolio and you as a creator when you're entering these big meetings. How did you get the funding for those? Were those also Kickstarter projects, or were those saved up, or how did that all work?
And you bring up an interesting point, because I always thought that the portfolio would make more of a difference, because I do think when you look at all the work I've done in the aggregate, you can sort of get a sense, oh, this guy isn't going to stop. And, oh, there's a point of view there, but what's interesting is they're very different projects. I made a very personal documentary that was hand-drawn, and, animated projects. And we've got, this live action sci-fi thing. They're very different from each other. But I think when you look at them together, it's, to me, it would be something of value. But what's been interesting is the lack of care or awareness of the projects that came before. What really those things were valuable for were the relationships, the learning, the honing of the craft. And basically the only thing that mattered to anybody was Skywatch in these conversations. And maybe it's different when it comes to a manager or representation. Maybe they do look at the bulk of your portfolio. Mike, feel free to chime in, but that's my perspective. It's like everyone's always asking, well, what do you got next? Because that's really the thing that is of value to that ecosystem. To answer your question about where the financing came from, it's been steadily growing. It's kind of amazing to look at, because when that list of shorts, 80% of them were made for, less than $100, because they were the high school movies that I didn't spend money on. That's obviously separate from the computer and the camera, you know. But when I went to film school, and obviously at that point, the budgets grew. But you know, En route, which is the thing that impressed Mike, that was a very ambitious short, produced by the same producer, Andre, who's watching, and Sandro, my visual effects supervisor, who worked on Skywatch. He worked on this college project of mine. We made it for $3,000. And that was self-financed, you know. It's a tiny drop in the bucket compared to what a film school costs. And then my senior film at SCAD, we did a Kickstarter for as well. So that was my first Kickstarter experience. And I raised about $12,000 on that project. And so it's just been steadily growing, which has been kind of amazing. And Skywatch is the first project. I also found an independent financier to help make it happen. Basically, an executive producer who had faith in the business plan, like the model, you know, had seen the previous work, helped make the project, helped us shoot it. And then it wasn't quite enough to get us to the finish line, which is why we did the Kickstarter for post.
Okay. And you met him just through networking,
that executive producer, yeah, that was, you know, I guess I'm contradicting myself here, but that was because of Sintel. And I think en route, the work that I had just finished somehow crossed his path, and he checked out everything I'd ever made, and he reached out. And at the time, it was in a very different context. He had a project that he wanted, that he was writing, and wanted me to potentially direct. And that was a relationship that I just kind of kept in touch with this guy, because he was going to self-finance that feature. And that was not going to work out for various reasons. But over the course of a year or two, I kind of let him know about, this is my game plan. I'm going to do this sci-fi proof of concept short, and it's going to be expensive, but this is the plan. And hopefully, you know, is it something you're interested in? And it may be worth noting that this particular financier it's not yet a success story for him. It's only going to be a success story if this thing actually gets made. And I think we've got a great shot at it. And we're on the journey, but it's such a leap of faith for him, and it's such a gamble. Investing in a short film makes so little sense, you know, but he's kind enough to do it and see the potential.
Amazing. And Mike, I've got a couple questions for you that were thrown into the Q&A. Some people want to know what it's like transitioning from kids' books into features. And now I'm going to also piggyback on that Q&A. For your training that you did at UCLA, did you focus on features? And if you had to kind of go back to school, if you will, to learn how to break a TV pilot?
Yeah, no, I did focus on features, and most of my writing and education has been features. So I came to children's books later, and that's like a totally different skill in a way. It's more like poetry, I would say. But the similarities between the two are every word has to count, and you can't run too long, especially picture books, which should typically be 500 words or less or fewer. But that's how I learned how to do that. And then just switching between the two, I find, and I know Colin has this too, it's nice to work on a couple different types of projects. For me, it's a couple different types of writing. So it's like trying to crack some feature story structure thing is using a certain part of your brain, but then trying to write a lyrical, emotional picture book that also works for kids is like a little bit of a different part of your brain. And then working with artists to help, you know, put your vision on the page. Just, it's a nice little different skill to exercise.
And Mike is also writing middle grade novels as well, which is yeah. Basically, I learned I love to write all different types of things. So I don't feel you have to necessarily limit yourself to what you write. And for me, it was also just a survival mechanism of screenwriting wasn't working, but I love to write. What else can I write?
Are you enjoying writing the pilot?
Oh yeah, it's been great actually. Yeah, it's like Colin said, it's kind of breathed fresh life into the project, and our partners have been wonderful. So yeah, it's been a fun ride so far.
That's amazing. Wow. I'm just going through some of the other Q&As and let me see if I've got any more for you. I mean, I'm sure you guys have been talking too much to look at the chat, but everyone's
Yeah, I've been scrolling a little bit. It's pretty amazing.
Oh my God. What else? There's so many good ones. Oh, have you opened the writer's room yet?
That is, I can't wait to get to that point. I hope we do. So basically, we're on the hook for this pilot and Bible, which will probably take. It's been really interesting. It's felt fairly streamlined, this process. Like it's felt fairly linear, and we're progressing. But it's actually also, I don't think our pace has necessarily sped up since turning this into TV. So, hopefully at some point next year that would be a possibility.
Yeah, awesome. And then I have a couple people here. Meg Swartlow, who actually won our Shoot Your Sizzle project for her horror feature. And then Austin, so both of them kind of have questions about where to go from here, what kind of recommendations you would have for someone who's in the same boat as you, who was in the same boat that you were in the same time, not repped, working on your passion project. When trying to approach the project as a series, Austin's wondering, would you suggest writing that pilot, adding in a Bible or a pitch deck, or finding as many doors to open when pitching? What would your process be to someone going through this whole journey that you've gone through and everything that you learned? If you do it all over and save time.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because Mike and I were having this conversation earlier today, which is reflecting on the fact that the pitch and the short ended up being more important than the feature itself to get the sale. But to actually walk the walk, which we're doing this year, hopefully, I feel like we are, those years, also, we would not have made any money. Like the script is the valuable thing. The script got bought, but to get to that threshold, it was about the strength of the other materials and the strength of the promise of the broader picture. So I really think each piece of the puzzle is really valuable, but we would not have a story to tell if we didn't write it, if we didn't already have it. And yes, we're adapting it, and yes, it's evolving quite a bit, but I think we couldn't be in the position we are today without every little failure along this journey. So just to translate that into more actionable advice, we didn't have a pitch deck, and that was something I thought that I was going to need. I think if you have a short film, because you said Shoot Your Sizzle, is that there has been an actual short being made in this case, in Austin's case. Yeah.
Meg Swartlow, who's on right now, who won our Shoot Your Sizzle. So it's based on a script, and
got it
for you.
Got it. Yeah, I'm a fan of over preparation. So if you can put together as many exciting materials that really help tell the story. I also want to rely as little as possible on me, like getting in front of people and wowing them. I'd love for, pretty images to do that, or a story that you can hit play on and watch to do that. And also I was going to say, I kind of feel like Mike and I both, neither of us are geniuses or brilliant, born brilliant writers, but what we lack in genius, I think we make up for in the persistence side of things, in the dedication and diligence side of things. Like every single day we're writing for a couple hours, which is crazy. And obviously we can do that now. When we were at Pixar, it was a very different schedule, but every single Tuesday night we would be meeting, or every Thursday we'd be grabbing lunch or whatever. And that persistence over time, I think, has made a huge difference. I don't have much advice in terms of getting managers or representation. It's just if you keep doing the work and you keep showing up and you keep on producing great stuff, and I've put a lot more time and effort into actually, doing the making of the stuff, which, is maybe why it took as long as it did. I mean, Sintel, if someone else had that Sintel experience with a bit of a more savvy, like business savvy, maybe that could have been leveraged into something. Maybe that could have become a breaking in moment. But I did sort of have this sense of inevitability that, like, all right, I'm just going to keep on making stuff. I'm going to apply as much strategy and thinking as I can to it, and getting more and more believers on board, like my producer Andre, and my visual effects supervisor and Mike, were very much a team, and I think that's more important than, as the team expands, it also includes an entertainment lawyer and a manager and agents. I didn't sign with agents. Like, I signed with WME 10 years ago, and then not again until after this deal went this year. So, we would have released this thing online regardless of whether I had reps. And I think hopefully we would have had a good result. There's way too much to know, like too many factors to know. But for the most part, it was like being able to...
A little bit. You said you teased it to people and you had a strategy behind it. It wasn't just like, okay, let's throw it up on Vimeo and like see what happens.
Yeah, I think a lot of people make that mistake where it's like they're gonna trust the algorithm, or they're gonna trust that something's just gonna blow up organically. And unfortunately, I mean, YouTube has changed quite a bit, and I think that strategy has also changed. And I'm not a YouTuber, so I don't intimately understand that stuff. But I did know that, like, you need human, like, supporters. You need a lot of them who are on your side, ready to, like, for example, I created a mailing list, an opt-in situation, like, hey, Kickstarter backers, hey, Twitter followers, anyone who wants to be on the Skywatch street team, please join this mailing list. I'm going to give you some assignments. It's crazy, and I didn't actually have enough time to fully, because that takes some management, like, to get them going. But I was posting Reddit threads. I was posting tweets to like, because there were probably only 30 of them, folks on that mailing list, but everyone was enthusiastic and everyone was posting it to their walls and their contacts. And a lot of people helped seed that, I guess, that early success. But it took us a while. I also have to say, this is kind of an aside, but the Jude Law video that you included in the invite, whatever, like how to get a world famous actor in your short film, that ancillary behind the scenes content was the best driver of traffic to the actual short. And, it's a pretty unique situation, obviously, but that was actually that was doing better than the short. That went more viral than the short film itself, but it ended up helping a lot to get eyes on Skywatch.
The footage that you had the wherewithal to say, somebody better record this while it's happening backstage, because we're going to need this footage to remember.
Right.
So smart. And so, I mean, for both of you, how much, and this will probably be one of our last questions, sorry everyone, but how much in terms of networking, how big of your process is that? I mean, in terms of, I know you're writing every day, you guys are obviously so focused on what you guys are putting out into the world, but in terms of networking and emailing people and just like grabbing a Zoom invite or a coffee when we're back to normal, like how much of that did that help with this process? And would you recommend just keep meeting people to everyone on here?
Yeah, I'll take this one at first. I kind of made this mistake when I was starting out of thinking like, oh, networking is all about like getting people at a higher level than you interested in your stuff. And that's not effective and it doesn't really work. So true networking, this is something I learned from Austin, is networking with your peers, basically. This is the most effective form to me. So that is building relationships with somebody else who's at a similar level to you, a similar level of dedication, sharing things with them like Colin and I did, right? We started out just kind of sharing scripts, and eventually it became more where we were actually collaborating. But even just those connections of having people read your work are valuable, because guess what? Those people are going to be assistants somewhere, and they're going to rise up the ranks, and they're going to go, oh, I loved Mike's old script, let me pass this along. Or, you know, they're going to rise up the ranks as you do, and you'll all be able to help each other out. So to me, that's the most effective form of networking.
And just to add on to it with a bit of an anecdote about how I got my manager now, this manager, it was through a Pixar friend who was at a time repped by the same guy. And to me, that's the type of networking that has been the most valuable, is really just friendships, you know? So creative friendships, though. It's like, cool, you're doing a cool thing. I'm actually excited by your work. And keeping in touch with those people who inspire you, that has been incredibly valuable. And I'm not connected very well at all. I mean, I moved to LA specifically for this moment with Skywatch. And while I've been in LA, I've taken advantage of the fact that I live in LA, which means, well, there's so many people who live just here. I mean, I see people just walking around who I recognize from TV. So that's pretty crazy. And I've definitely taken a whole bunch of generals, and I don't think there's any getting away from, there's a social component to this for sure, but I much prefer to be home working than hobnobbing or, you know, rubbing elbows with folks in COVID times. Networking events, you know. I also, I had a festival, a film festival, like I used to really, really want to get my work into great film festivals like Sundance or Toronto or South by Southwest. That's never happened for me. And I think that I had an unhealthy attitude about it, because I wanted, you know, festivals are a great place to meet people. And I've had some really valuable networking experiences at festivals. And Mike has already mentioned his 10 years at Austin, which I think, you know, I've just heard him talk so much about how valuable that has been. But it's such a different journey, you know, putting together a film project that has a festival feature versus something that you're more leveraging the internet for. And they seem to be pretty different paths, even in the type of content and the type of stories you can tell, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. God, guys, this has been so amazing and informative. And I mean, people are just absolutely loving it. And I just want to thank you so much for replying to me on Instagram. Be a part
Such an honor. Thank you so much for having us, and for everyone staying and watching it.
We're going to shoot this live. And I mean, you know, I think as we all saw from the chat, this really just bolstered our sense of community, and, you know, even what you guys have talked about, building your tribe and building your people and doing your passion project. So thank you so much for doing this and talking to us about it.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes.
Thanks, guys. It was truly inspirational. Amazing.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
for being just so real. I mean, that's like, for me, what I appreciate the most is you guys are so cool and just down to earth, and it gives people that inspiration of like, hey, we're not that different, and to carry on and continue to do what you want to be doing. So thank you guys so much for just being real.
Yeah, and the hard work. I mean, like
Right.
Overnight sensation, this 10-year overnight sensation, 18.
Right.
I mean, it's like, it's that whole, you know, 10,000 hours thing. I mean, I think it's really, no one wants to admit it, but it's really nice to hear it, that is the truth, you know. You have to work hard.
There's no way around that part, for sure. I mean, it honestly feels a little weird this is kind of a unique context for us, but it feels weird to be sharing this as a success story because it's just happened. And we also feel, I mean, it's the very, very beginning of something that hopefully turns into something real, but it isn't yet, you know? So it's exciting to be at this threshold, and it's a meaningful one as well. But yeah, it's, I appreciate that.
We're all rooting for you.
Thank you.